I am Shobha Sahasrabuddhe, visiting faculty at the Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai. I am very thankful for this opportunity of being a part of this series of 60 lectures on the occasion of Diamond Jubilee year of the department. My best wishes for the prosperity and progress of the department. The topic for my lecture today is Tantrayukti, a remarkable doctrine in Indian knowledge system. My lecture is divided into two parts or sections. The first section is a bigger one. It will deal with topics such as what are Tantrayuktis, sources of Tantrayuktis, brief meaning of each Tantrayukti. And the second section will be a smaller one dealing with the applicability part. So let me begin my lecture now. First, let us look at the etymological meaning of the term Tantrayukti. Tantrayukti has two elements, two components, Tantra and Yukti. The word Tantra is derived from the root Tana, meaning to stretch or to compose. So, we can equate the meaning as a scientific treatise. So, Tantra can be equated with the meaning Shastriya Grantha, scientific treatise. And the second component, Yukti, is derived from the root yuja, meaning to employ or to use. So it can be understood as a technique or a tool. So simply speaking, Tantrayuktis are the techniques employed in composing a scientific treatise. That is the primary meaning. We will later on see that the concept is multifaceted. For convenience sake, I have used the abbreviation TY for Tantrayuktis in all the slides. Now, if we regard the sources of Tantrayuktis, here I have mentioned 6 sources. The oldest source of Tantrayuktis is Kautilya Arthashastra. In the last Adhikarana titled Tantrayukti, 32 Tantrayuktis have been clearly defined, accompanied by an example of each from the same composition. Second important source is Charaka Samhita. In the 12th chapter of Siddhisthana, 36 Tantrayuktis have been defined. Sushruta Samhita, in its 65th chapter, gives definitions of 32 Tantrayuktis. Ashtanga Sangraha by Vagbhata gives definitions of 36 Tantrayuktis. It is almost a reproduction from Charaka Samhita, differing only in a few nomenclatures. Tantrayukti Vicharaha by Neelamegha mentions 36 Tantrayuktis. The list is identical as in Ashtanga Sangraha. Vishnu Dharmottara Purana also mentions 32 Tantrayuktis. The list is identical as in Sushruta Samhita. Now, a question may come to our mind. Why this difference in the number? Somewhere the number is 32, somewhere it is 36. Some other sources also give 39 names or nomenclatures. So there are one or two reasons for it. Number one, a particular author may list a Tantrayukti which is omitted by the other author. And sometimes similar terminologies are used for the same Tantrayukti. Hence the nomenclatures increase. There is addition of nomenclatures. For example, Atita Vekshana is referred to as Atita Veksha by another author, although meaning is the same. So that is how we see this variation in numbers. Surely we can regard the average number as 34. Now the next important thing is to look at the types of Tantrayuktis and very briefly look at the meaning of each. Here, for time constraint, I will not give example for each and every one, but I will give examples for a limited number of Tantrayuktis to throw more light on the meaning. Let us go serially as shown in the slide. First name is Atikranta Vekshana. That means reference to a past statement. Here I would like to give an example from Kautilya Arthashastra. So these are the examples of usage of that Tantrayukti. We'll occasionally see some examples. So for the first Tantrayukti, Atikranta Vikshana, I'm quoting here an example from Kautilya Arthashastra. There is one wording which comes, Amatya Sampat Uktam Purastat. Qualifications of minister have been explained earlier. So Kautilya is making reference, citing reference of previous statement. Qualifications of ministers have already been explained earlier. So this technically it is called Atikranta Vikshana, reference to a past statement. Next is Atidesha. Atidesha means extension of application to analogous topics. Third is Adhikarana. Adhikarana is the topic under discussion, which is the focal subject matter of the treatise. So topic under discussion is Adhikarana. Next one is Anagata Vikshana. It is in pair with Atikranta Vikshana, the opposite of Atikranta Vikshana. So Anagata Vikshana means a reference to a future statement. Next one is Anumata, acceptance or approval of the view of others. Apadesha, a statement advancing reason. Seventh one is Apavarga, an exception to a general rule. Next one is Arthapatti, very, very significant. Arthapatti means presumption or implication. Here I would like to quote an example from Sushruta Samhita. Whatever examples I have taken from a variety of texts so that it is understood or it is proved that the scope of Tantrayuktis is not limited to any one particular Shastra. We can explore Tantrayuktis in all kinds of Shastras. So for Arthapatti, let me quote an example from Sushruta Samhita. Naktam Dadibhojana Nishedha Arthat Diva Bhunjita iti apadyate. During night, consumption of curd is prohibited, so it is presumed that curd can be consumed during daytime. The next Tantrayukti, ninth one is Uttara Paksha, reply to the objection raised by the opponent. 10th one is Uddesha, a brief statement of the topic to be discussed. Now this Uddesha and Nirdesha, which will come later, is a very, very important pair. Uddesha and Nirdesha. Uddesha is a brief statement and Nirdesha is telling the same fact in detail. So here I would quote an example of Uddesha from Nirukta. Shad bhava vikara bhavanti iti varshayani. So just number 6 is mentioned here. Their names are given later, which will come under Nirdesha. So Uddesha is a brief statement of the topic to be discussed. Next one is Uddhara, extraction of appropriate meaning from a statement. Upadesha, instruction or advice. Upamana, analogy. 14th one is Uyya. Uyya means deductive reasoning. Ekanta, a universal statement or an invariable rule. Nidarshana, an example or illustration. Niyoga, an authoritative command or injunction. Nirnaya, conclusion. Nirdesha, mentioning a fact in detail. The pair of Uddesha, the other part of Uddesha. So here Nirdesha will be same example from Nirukta. In Uddesha we have just mentioned number 6. Shad bhava vikaraha bhavanti iti parshayani. There are 6 bhava vikaras. And Nirdesha, the next statement says, which are these 6 bhava vikaras? So jayate, asti, viparinamate, vardhate, apakshiyate, vinashyati iti. This is a statement where Tantrayukti Nirdesha is involved. Next Tantrayukti, 20th one is Nirvachana, very, very important. Etymological interpretation of a word. This Tantrayukti is mandatory in any academic endeavor, especially. 21st Tantrayukti is Naikanta, a variable rule. Padartha, the meaning of a word. Purva Paksha, the prima facie view of a question or problem. Now Purva Paksha, Uttar Paksha, all of us are very well aware. These are Tantrayuktis and we can say they are making the infrastructure. They are the building blocks of any scientific treatise. 24th Tantrayukti is Pradesha, partial mention of a topic. Prasanga, reference to similar procedure. Yoga, the act of joining. Vakya Shesha, understanding the meaning by supplying ellipsis. What is ellipsis? It means words intentionally omitted by the author. So he expects his intelligent readers to assume those words. This is called Vakya Shesha. 28th one, Vikalpa, a statement of alternatives or options, which is many a times suggested by the use of va or. Then comes Vidhana, very important. Vidhana is table of contents, which gives an outline of topics and subtopics dealt with. Immediately we will be reminded of index in a book. Index can be equated with Vidhana, which gives a list of topics and subtopics. Next one is Viparyaya, that is contrariety, proving something by negating the opposite. Vyakhyana is detailed exposition. Samshaya is doubt or indecision. Samuchaya. Samuchaya is a group or a combination or unification. Now this group is never a haphazard group. It is a group of similar objects. And although this Tantrayukti may look very simple, it is of great use. We will see later how. And the 34th Tantrayukti is Sva-Saujna, a technical term which is coined by the author. So in very brief, we have seen the meaning of each Tantrayukti. Now, before we go further to applicability of Tantrayuktis, let us see, let me just bring you back to the last slide, sorry. So, we will see what is the significant role of Tantrayuktis. We have only looked at the primary meaning of Tantrayuktis as yet, that they are techniques of composing a scientific treatise. And many authors, especially authors of Ayurvedic treatises, have highlighted the most significant role of Tantrayuktis. Charaka praises Tantrayuktis by comparing those with the sun causing the bed of lotuses to bloom, and Sushruta regards Tantrayuktis as lampposts. So authors had really understood and highlighted the crucial role of Tantrayuktis. It is true that Tantrayuktis primarily are tools of composition of a scientific treatise, but that is only one phase of those. We can regard the doctrine of Tantrayuktis in a multiple ways, in a variety of ways. Because once we have understood that they are techniques of communication, basically, these are not merely bookish techniques. We are using all these techniques, or many of them rather, I wouldn't say all, we are using many of these in our day-to-day communication as well. May the communication be formal, informal, written or oral, we are making use of these because the main objective of these Tantrayuktis is removing blocks in misunderstanding, removing blocks which are hampering understanding. So these are basically communication techniques. So if we understand this phase, and very interestingly, nomenclatures of Tantrayuktis, they are seen at various places in different roles. Many a times names like Atidesha, Arthapatti, Upamana, these terms remind us of something else. We remember, oh, this is a pramana also. Yukti is mentioned as a pramana in Charaka Samhita. So they are multifaceted. They are integral elements of nyayas, laukika nyayas or maxims. So this is a very, very universal and very interesting and a multifaceted doctrine. It is up to us to modify it as per our requirement and make use of those for effective communication in our respective work area. So on this background, we will go to the second section of the lecture, namely applicability of Tantrayuktis. Now, when we have understood this shade of meaning of Tantrayuktis as techniques of effective communication, there is no denial, or it comes logically, that Tantrayuktis will be applicable in all communication governed areas. Wherever communication is there, use of Tantrayuktis is there. We have all been using it all the time. What our ancient scholars have done is they have extracted these techniques from normal lives, from normal communications, and they have given it technical labels, nomenclatures, so that it becomes a codified system. They have codified it technically. That is the great job done mainly by Kautilya, Charaka, and Sushruta. So let us come back to the applicability part now. When we say all communication governed fields or areas, the first two main names that come to our mind are pedagogy and research methodology. Pedagogy, that is the science of teaching methodology. So it is always communication between the teacher and the student is the focal point of teaching. Communication of concepts, ideas have to be absolutely clear. That is the main purpose behind teaching process. So technically speaking, if we speak in scientific language, with reference to Bloom's taxonomy model, Tantrayuktis are mainly relevant at three levels of learning, namely understanding, applying, and analyzing. So knowledge and conscious use of Tantrayuktis at appropriate junctures by teachers go a long way in effective communication. So it can be put or understood in this way. Teachers who are regarded as good teachers, teachers whose teaching reaches students, are the ones who are using proper Tantrayuktis at appropriate junctures. And as a corollary, students, if they have knowledge of Tantrayuktis, if they have idea about this doctrine of Tantrayuktis, they are also better equipped for grasping and learning quickly. So this is a double advantage, that it is important from both the sides, from the side of the teacher as well as the students. So pedagogy is a field where we find tremendous applicability of the doctrine of Tantrayuktis. Now we come to the second field, that is research methodology. When we consider applicability of Tantrayuktis in research methodology, we have to regard it at two levels: interpretation of data and presentation of data. Data, results, and conclusion. So at both these levels, Tantrayuktis are applicable in different ways. First, let us look at interpretation of data. So when we collect a lot of data, we interpret the data. In that process, some mental apparatus is operational. Our thinking process, our thinking caps are on, we say. So what is this exact process that goes in akalana, understanding, grasping, and interpretation of data? So certain Tantrayuktis are already an integral part of this thinking process. Now the only job remaining after exploring Tantrayuktis is to search for equivalent technical nomenclature of that Tantrayukti, isn't it? So here we see mainly during interpretation of data, which are the Tantrayuktis that come in the picture. Uyya, that is deductive thinking; Atidesha, that is inductive thinking, application, extension of topics to others. So Atidesha or inductive thinking, Uyya or deductive thinking, then sometimes Arthapatti, Viparyaya. All these things are operational. All these elements are operational when we are trying to interpret collected data. The second level, that is presentation of data, here Tantrayuktis are applicable or operational at quite a concrete level, because when it comes to systematic and methodical presentation of data, we need a lot of mental exercise. It is never instantaneous. It cannot be a natural process. A lot of thinking has to go into it, proper organization. So here, conscious use of Tantrayuktis will really prove to be a boon. It will really change altogether the technical status of the work presented. So let us explore some sub-elements in the presentation of data. A writing of any research paper or a thesis or an article, research article, which are the common components and which Tantrayuktis may come in the picture. Let us see one by one. First one, we have to start from the title. Title is a very, very important part. And title, the requirement of a good title is it should be crisply perfect. It has to be crisp and brief, yet it should throw light on the main topic. It should make very clear what is going to come next. So a crisply perfect title should be coined. And here the main one or two Tantrayuktis that are operational. First one is Padartha. Padartha nama padasya artha. But it does not mean only meaning of a word, because there are multiple shades of meanings of words. So, in keeping with our research work, which shade is most suited? So, from the available 2 to 3 words, which word should be used here? That will be taught to us if we have proper understanding of the Tantrayukti Padartha, Padasya Artha. So Padartha is a very, very important Tantrayukti when it comes to coining of title. Then sometimes Samuchchaya. We can express, we can bring together a number of similar concepts or words and form one single word by making use of Samuchchaya. And that will be very, very advantageous while forming a brief or crisp title. Second part, important part is hypothesis. To put it simply, hypothesis can be explained or described as a presupposed conclusion. Proper wording of hypothesis is very significant. So here, Tantrayuktis such as Atidesha, Uyya, Arthapatti are greatly operational. We can say overall that in any research work, we cannot do without this pair. Which pair? Atidesha and Uyya. Atidesha is inductive thinking, inductive reasoning, and Uyya is deductive reasoning. We need to use both these. We need to have both these capacities. A good researcher needs to have both these capacities. So Atidesha and Uyya are, you can say, great pillars of any research work when it comes to interpretation as well as presentation. The third element that I would like to talk about is synopsis, abstract and summary. I have made a samuchchaya of these three, right? So synopsis, abstract and summary, I have grouped them together and I am talking singularly about them. Here is how the Tantrayukti samuchchaya I have used. Alright, I am giving such examples just to highlight the fact that Tantrayuktis are not any bookish techniques to be learnt by heart. The concept is to be absorbed, grasped, and it has to be put to use in the proper way at appropriate junctures, depending upon our own work area. So let us look at this group called condensed versions. What are synopsis, abstract and summary? These three are versions of various degrees of condensation of a research work. So here, while formulating a synopsis, abstract or summary, which Tantrayuktis can be of use or will come in the picture? Uddesha, Nirdesha, Uyya and Ekanta. Ekanta, sometimes we have to include an emphatic statement when we are writing a synopsis. So that is called Ekanta, invariable rule. Then Uddesha, Nirdesha pair, it will come here very, very significantly, because in one sentence you will just say, kindly go back to that example from Nirukta we had seen. Shadbhava Vikaraha, and how we give all the 6 names later. So we are making use of such strategies in these condensed versions, when we have to write the things in brief, but it has to be pregnant with meaning. So here Uddesha Nirdesha pair is inevitable. So like these, we have seen how uh, pedagogy and research methodology, where communication is at the core. Communication is the soul of these two areas. So here conscious use of Tantrayuktis will definitely prove to be helpful. And I have also given a third category. There are many other areas of the present era also we can add on to the list. So I'm just trying to reflect that it is a universal concept also. It is not a bygone concept. According to situation, we can do modifications and apply it to any new modern areas as well. So many other areas, I have mentioned few names here: marketing and sales or training programs. All these areas you will see similar to pedagogy, they all are revolving around communication. So if persons working in these fields are properly trained, if Tantrayukti knowledge is given to them, imparted them, it will surely aid either directly or indirectly in their communication skills. Their communication can become more polished, more sophisticated, more efficient, and effective. So, marketing, sales, training programs, book writing. While writing any composition, a certain system is expected, even though it is classical literature, any type of literature it may be, a book or a written composition needs to have a system. It cannot be haywire, it cannot be haphazard. So, wherever any systematic communication we talk about, Tantra Yuktis are bound to be there. And last two words, judging in competitions or selection process in interviews. At the first glance, some of you may wonder, oh, what, I mean, Tantrayuktis, where do they come in picture here? So here application of Tantrayuktis may not be direct, it is not direct, but there is a trace of it. I'll try to just elaborate on it. Now, when a candidate has to be selected in an interview, some score or competition, winner has to be decided in a competition. Certain score needs to be given. Suppose I am a judge or an interviewer. I have to give people marks out of 100. How do I arrive at that figure? I just simply cannot think about, oh, give 60 to this person, give 80 to this person. There is a certain basis on which I am trying to evaluate the candidates. Now, I may divide those 100 marks into 4 parts, 25 each. And for each heading, I may club together 2 similar parameters. For example, logic and reasoning, or creativity and artistic presentation can be second pair. Research and efforts taken, that can be third. So likewise, here indirectly I am making use of samuchaya. I am bringing together 2 similar parameters and including them in one heading. So then my marking system, it becomes very methodical. It becomes logical. There is some base on which I am judging people. So like this, we may find other Tantrayuktis also. Here I am just trying to overview the entire doctrine of Tantrayuktis. It's a very, very vast subject, just like the Hindi wording goes, Gagar mein sagar. This effort is like that. But then surely it will be very useful to put a glance on the highlights of that doctrine. And it is up to us, every one of us, to modify it suited to our needs. Okay, so this is the applicability part of Tantrayuktis. So, as a in a nutshell, I have tried to throw light very briefly on various perspectives of Tantrayuktis. So, at the concluding phase, I am tempted here to carry out one interesting exercise in front of you, because theoretical knowledge of Tantrayuktis is not sufficient. The applicability part, exploration part is very, very essential. So here I got an idea. Let me look at this very presentation, whatever I have presented in the last half an hour or so. Let me look at the same presentation in the light of Tantrayuktis. Alright, so let me make that effort. I have in my mind a number of points, but I'll put forth here only 4 points to make it crisp. So, exploring the same, my past presentation in the light of Tantrayuktis. First is title. Let us look at the title. So, some thought has given into it, isn't it? If I wanted to make a half an hour presentation, some systematic thought has gone into it. I am trying to just unfold some points out of that. First one is title. My title was Tantrayukti, a remarkable doctrine in Indian knowledge system, for which I use the word I case. I began the title with Tantrayukti. The word Tantrayukti is used in the beginning because in terminology of Tantrayukti, I would call it Adhikarana of my talk. Adhikarana is the central topic. So Tantrayukti is the central topic. That word, I cannot keep it in suspense. It has to come crystal clear right in the beginning, so that listeners they get a total idea what is the topic of this talk. So in the language of Tantrayuktis, I would say that Tantrayukti word is the adhikarana of my talk. So I began the title with that word. It is the focal subject. There cannot be any suspense about it, nor can there be any equivalent term for it. That particular word should be used, and it should be used in the beginning. Second point is, I talked that there are, right in the beginning, that there are two sections of my talk. This I would like to loosely collaborate or equate with vidhana, that is index. Whatever clarity one gets by reading the index of a book, some similar feeling some of you might have got by listening to that sentence of mine, that it contains two sections and the approximate proportion. First section will be bigger, second section will be smaller. So you get some infrastructure in front of your eyes. It is just like index of a book. So that sentence was also crucial, and I would like to equate that with Tantrayukti Vidhana. Third point, I had made another statement that primarily these are techniques of book composition, but there are other facets which we will discuss later. So this is an example of Anagata Vikshana. I will talk about it in near future, after some time. So this is nothing but Anagata Vikshana. And fourth and the last point is Nidarshana. Actually, this is going to come in my conclusion part, so I will talk about it there, because shortly I'll be talking about my conclusion. So there I have made use of Nidarshan, an example which will make clear the role of Tantrayuktis, how they operate, what is their bhumika, what is the role of Tantrayuktis. So like this, how much ever small it may be, any systematic presentation, there is always a scope to explore it in the light of Tantrayuktis. And not just exploration, sometimes it teaches us a number of things. When we do such a kind of study, we are made aware of our own mistakes. Maybe I get some hints here how I should have done this, how organization can be changed, how this order was not good, a better order can be used, and so on. So we ourselves can learn from our own mistakes, and our works can go on improving like this if we try to explore our own work in the light of this technical network called Tantrayuktis. And just as an added interesting detail, we can't speak about it here, but along with Tantrayuktis, there are two support systems called Tantra Gunas and Tantra Doshas, which make the entire system perfect. These are like limbs or angas, you can say. So Tantra Gunas and Tantra Doshas are, you can say, ancillaries or support systems that go along with Tantrayuktis. So if we study together all these three concepts, that will really make holistic learning. Now let me come to my conclusion, final conclusion. Although primarily described as tools of composition of scientific treatises, Tantrayuktis may also be regarded as techniques of effective communication. Knowledge and conscious use of Tantrayuktis can surely contribute to the sharpening of the skills of linguistic communication, may it be formal or informal, written or oral, academic or non-academic. Lastly, I would like to compare the concept of or the doctrine of Tantrayuktis with ball bearings. What is the role of ball bearings? Ball bearings are affixed to heavy pieces of furniture. They facilitate smooth movement of those heavy pieces by avoiding friction. Tantrayuktis are performing similar job. They are avoiding friction in the way of communication, and they enable smooth transfer of ideas, concepts, and information from the speaker to the listener, from the teacher to the student, or between two communicators. So, this wonderful doctrine of Tantrayuktis must attract all of us, and we should really put it to use even in our present day to day work. Thank you.